DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy, family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Against the Boards. I'm your host, Chamberlain Bauder, here for another episode talking hockey and lacrosse in Western New York. First things first, big thanks to our producer, Paul Russo, for getting us up and running. And as we get into this one, it is a big I-90 matchup for the Knighthawks down the road in Buffalo this weekend. And meanwhile, for the Amerks, with 5 games left in the season, not yet clinched in that 5th spot, but just about all but have done that in the North Division, with both Utica and Belleville having 5 games left, and Belleville's not going to have the easiest slate to get through, with a couple games against Laval coming up in these final 5. But with that said, taking a look at kind of the Amerks stat breakdown at this point, who are the leaders, who sticks out in the AHL based on the stats that exist. In the first 2 guys to talk about, 1 offensive player, 1 defenseman. Constable Helenius, of course, doing just about everything for this Amerks team offensively. 60 points in 58 games for him, a point per game, 41 of those points assists. We saw him when he got back to Rochester, had that natural hat trick, what he can do as the primary forward scorer for this Amerks offense, and he's a really big factor. Another big factor, though, is defenseman Zach Jones, who leads all defensemen in the NHL, or in the AHL rather, in the AHL in points by 9. He has 49 assists and 10 goals for 59 points, clear of second at 50 points right now. Just has had offensively a staggering season, no doubt about it, and has been a key of consistency too for this Amerks squad as the season has kind of gone on. In goal, another area of consistency, feels like we've talked about it a lot in different ways throughout this season. Devin Levi has played the most minutes in the AHL. He is clear by about 2 games in minutes played so far this season. 28-51. He'll probably, I think he could pass 3,000 minutes played this season in the AHL, which would be kind of a feat of its own. Most games played as well at 49. He also has the second most saves in the AHL so far this season, just behind Remy Poirier. But ultimately, you look at it, significantly more minutes than anybody else. So when you kind of break it down on a saves per minute basis, it's not as impressive, but still leading the AHL in saves total at this point in the season, and minutes as well for Devin Levi, getting really all the experience you can kind of ask for in Rochester right now, especially when you've got guys up in Buffalo that have proved to be one of the better goalie trios in the NHL. Not really the room for Levi to go up there, but he's taken full advantage really of the minutes that he's gotten, and Leo's given him all the opportunities in Rochester to kind of thrive there. But ultimately, like we said, 5 games left in the regular season. It's not technically clinched right now for the playoff spot, but when you look at the playoff primer, if you are wondering where these kind of stats come from, head to theahl.com. You'll be able to find all of the playoff primer breakdowns for how many points are needed still for a team to clinch and whatnot. And as we look to the North Division, the Amerks are the only team left in a playoff spot that has not clinched their playoff spot. So at this point, with those 5 games left, like we said, Utica would have to win out and Rochester would have to lose out. So not maybe the most likely scenario there, but there is a 8-point stretch between the 2 teams. So if Rochester doesn't win one or only goes to overtime once in these next 5 games, and Utica wins all of their next games, next 5, then they take it. But like we said, the schedule doesn't necessarily pan out for that to be the case. And the Amerks have the benefit of the fact that Belleville and Utica do have to play each other one more time in this regular season before it all is said and done. So they're in the spot. They'll likely play Toronto in that play-in tournament spot for the first round of the AHL playoffs. It'll be good to have playoff hockey in Rochester, no doubt about it. Cool to have both teams for the organization making it to the playoffs in the same season. You don't always get that, honestly, but ultimately, you kind of look at the shakeup of where the key Amerks are that have stepped up over the course of the season, and it makes sense that they're still able to get themselves into a playoff spot. It's just not as emphatic of a playoff push as they've had in years past when, you have the Peterka, Quinn, and Krebs line that can run things up the middle, and it just looked different then. But now it's one solid goaltender and ultimately a Ratzlaff lining in around him to fill in. You've got the best scoring defenseman in the AHL, and you've got one of the great young prospects in the AHL as well in Consta. So about as set up as you can ultimately ask for going into this backstretch of the season. One more home game for the Rochester Americans in this regular season. They will take on the Cleveland Monsters at home on April 17th. We'll talk more about that one next week as we get ready for it, because it will be an awesome final regular season weekend in Rochester for fans watching at home, and there will be something to do on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Rochester when it comes to the two teams that we cover the most on this podcast. So super excited for that. Should be a fun slate of games from that April 17th through 19th stretch as the Knighthawks host or go to and then host the Georgia Swarm on Saturday and Sunday. But first, got to get through this weekend. Knighthawks will head to Buffalo to take on the Bandits, and meanwhile, it will be Springfield and Providence, the first two games this week for the Amerks to play, and they'll play tomorrow against Springfield on the road, and then they will head the next day to Providence to take on the Bruins there. But like we said, need drastic swings right now for the Amerks to not clinch this last spot in the playoffs. They are 3 points away from clinching it, so a win today, or a win tomorrow rather, and reaching overtime on Sunday could clinch the playoff spot for them right there. Ultimately, we'll know by the end of the day on Saturday. Sure that Spencer has plenty of different playoff scenarios and breakdowns for you on the Knighthawks side of things, and without further ado, we'll send it over to him now. Hope you enjoyed this segment of Against the Boards.
It was a good second half effort by the Knighthawks, but not enough to get the win in Halifax. A 15-10 final score from the Nest in Halifax. Knighthawks offense started early this week with a goal from Ryan Smith under 2 minutes into the contest. Goal scorers in this game for the Knighthawks: Ryan Lanchbury had 2, Connor Fields and Blaze Ridden each had 1. Thomas McConvey had a pair, Taylor Jensen and Matt Gilray each added their own in transition, and Ryan Smith had 2. It was a rough outing for Knighthawks goaltender Riley Hutchcraft, allowed 10 goals on 32 shots and only having 22 saves. Rylan Hartley came in late in the first half and played the entire second half of the game. Hartley made 20 saves on 24 shots, only allowing 4, and he gets credited for the loss. As far as Halifax, Warren Hill stood on his head yet again. 42 saves on 52 shots. He was efficient and really helped Halifax get this win. And now moving on to this upcoming Friday night. Knighthawks fans need to be paying attention to what happens in these two games on Friday night. First one, Toronto is at Ottawa. Knighthawks fans need to be rooting hard for Toronto in this game. An Ottawa win really puts a dagger in the heart of the Knighthawks. The second game is Halifax heading west to play the Warriors in Vancouver. The Warriors are coming off of a devastating 15-5 loss in Buffalo. It's another team the Knighthawks need to win. The Warriors, back at home, they really need this one. And for the Knighthawks' sake, they need this one times 2. For the sake of the Knighthawks, they are currently sitting in 10th place in the NLL Unified Standings. On Saturday, the Knighthawks will be headed to Buffalo to take on the Bandits at KeyBank Center. It is a 7 o'clock start. Buffalo has won 6 games in a row. Bandits really struggled early on this season. They were sitting at 4-6 before having a overtime win against the Rush at home. That really got the momentum turning for Buffalo, as now they are sitting at 10-6. The Bandits have also clinched a playoff spot already. At this point of the season, they are just battling now to try and get a home playoff game in round 1. The Knighthawks just need to crawl their way to a win. A loss will be devastating, and it would also essentially put the nail in the coffin on the 2025-2026 NLL season for Rochester. The Knighthawks need to get to Matt Vince early, kind of like how they did in the first matchup these two teams played earlier this season. Not sure who is going to start this Saturday, considering Hutchcraft has a rough outing in Halifax. I have a feeling they might go back to Rylan Hartley, but that's just me, in my opinion. After the loss in Nova Scotia, Rochester is now sitting at 6-9, heading into their final 3 must-win games of the regular season. As I mentioned, Rochester will be in Buffalo on Saturday before starting a back-to-back weekend next week with the Georgia Swarm. Already talked about the 2 games on Friday night and how important they are, so we're going to take a look at the rest of the games in this upcoming weekend. Saturday, we have a rematch of last weekend, this time in Oshawa, as the Firewolves are hosting the Roughnecks. Firewolves won this matchup last weekend, so it'll be interesting to see how Calgary responds on the road. And the first game that's not on Friday night that means something for the Knighthawks, Las Vegas is at Philly. This is essentially the last game in Philadelphia for this Wings franchise. I expect them to play for the home crowd, play a tough game, and hopefully for the Knighthawks' sake, come out with a win against Vegas. Next game up, Colorado at Saskatchewan. This game doesn't mean a whole lot for the Knighthawks, as these two teams are already clinched. This is really a battle for the number 1 seed in the NLL. And the final game, San Diego at Georgia. The Knighthawks really need San Diego to lose in this one, just to keep them where they are. Knighthawks beat San Diego in the season opener, so they have the head-to-head already in that column, and a Georgia win will be very helpful for the K-Hawks. I will be in Buffalo in the press box. Hopefully there is a good crowd of Knighthawks fans in the 716. This is a do-or-die game for the K-Hawks and their postseason hopes. For the last part of the episode, I'm going to pull up some highlights from this weekend's game against Halifax. Thank you for listening to another episode of Against the Boards.
And a save by Hutchcraft, an early stop there. Waters moves it over, Fields across, here's a shot, they score! They open the scoring, Ryan Smith gets the Knighthawks on the board. Conley with it to the top of the power play, Fields faked to the backhander, goes behind the goal. McConvey, Fields looking, waiting it out, down to the far crease. McConvey tries to put it over the shoulder, he does, he scores! And it's a 2-2 game, a power play goal by the Rochester Knighthawks. Hangs on now towards the top, heavy shot, they score! Blaze Reardon, last one pass, Warren Hill, it's up by 2, here's a chance, they score! In transition, up the other way, it's Matt Gilray. Moves it in, Lansbury, back to Fields, fakes, across, shot, they score! Ryan Smith, his second of the night. It comes shorthanded, and it's an 11-6. Hello. Fields back and forth with Smith. Shuffles over to the near side. Fields has it again. McConvey shoots, scores! The lefty on the right side. Jamieson shoots, tries a bit of a floater, though it had some heat on it, trying to go over the shoulder of Hartley. Now, partial breakaway. Rochester up the other way. Twister, shot, and they score!
Taken, they're going for that loose ball no matter what.
Fields over, now it's Smith. Smith hanging on to it, shoots! Oh, spectacular save by Ward Hill. Bounces it over to the far side, and Fields will start out there. Shoots, he scores!